am reading all of Eden by FREI live on Facebook and on YouTube, and the recorded clips then make their way onto Instagram IGTV, which means you can watch the same thing in the vertical portrait format as opposed to the live stream, which goes out in the traditional landscape format. We are approaching the midway point, would you believe it? Months into this exercise. Not quite yet, we're not quite there yet, but we are approaching it very slowly, but very surely as well. We are just over halfway through volume 6, bearing in mind always that there are 12 volumes of the Eden Miniature series, the Eden Miniature series being the published paperback version of Eden by, and we're just over halfway through the halfway volume. Now, we've been to Edinburgh on the tape. This is an actual travelogue. This is an actual audio diary that I recorded to myself, and this is the little book that talks about this. And we've so far been to Edinburgh and Paris and Grenoble and Italy, and now it is the turn of the chapter that's called Helvetia. From Milan, I take the train to Cour. Cour has never been my favourite place in the world, and it's not difficult for me to say why. It feels dour. It is apparently the oldest city in Switzerland, and it has, I believe, several things going for it, none of which is entirely evident to me. Mainly because it sits hemmed in by big mountains that deprive it of light almost completely in winter, while not being splendid enough in the summer to offer any type of gorgeousness in terms of a view. My sister at this time lives in Cour, and I'm heading towards her to spend a couple of days with her, the tape tells me. My memory of this is again hazy, but I'm clearly delighted. It is wonderful, I narrate, to spend time together and talk for the first time in years. And I know this will so. To this day, I enjoy spending time with my sister, though to this day, I don't do so often enough. And on this occasion, we must have had a lot to say to each other. I was back in the country where I grew up, but which I had always struggled and never found it either necessary or entirely possible to call home. For the first time since almost exactly 3 years earlier, I had left with 2 suitcases, one red and one black, and neither of them with casters, and a friend's address in my pocket in Enfield, thence to make London my home. Helvetia. I like thinking of Switzerland as Helvetia. It has something sturdy, Celtic, dependable to it, unique, firm and reassuring. Switzerland sounds, maybe because so much has become, like a brand, a theme park, a place where you go on holiday. Helvetia is a place where you were rooted in once. Whether you then uprooted yourself and for whatever reason fades into the background, into the fabric, it does not become insignificant, nothing of that kind ever does, but it's just there, part of the character, part of the being, part of the history, part of the substance, the core. And so is Helvetia. The train from Milan to Cour, I relate to the tape, took absolutely ages, but also provided the most admirable views. It's one of these instances where I betray the fact that I'm still not on top of the subtleties of the English language. I hear myself do that a lot in this recording. I nearly get the word right, but not quite. I still, from the back of my mind, translate traces from German, maybe not so much words as concepts, perhaps. I'm just not quite there yet. In Treviso, I changed trains and board this incredible little red train consisting of about 3 carriages all the way up over the San Bernardino Pass. Here, my memory suddenly kicks in again, vivid and strong. I remember this journey. this train, and with awe. I remember the windows being open, the warm summer air wafting in. I remember the noise intermittently, suddenly so much louder going through tunnels. I remember the green and red covered seats, red for smoking, green for none. I was a smoker then. I may have been travelling red. Then again, I may already have been doing what I used to do for a while. Park myself in the non-smoking section and nip to the red part of the carriage for the occasional cigarette. The train wasn't full. I remember it being almost empty. It's a glorious journey, and one you can still do. Now they have state-of-the-art rolling stock with huge panorama windows, and smoking is a definite no-no. But the trains are no faster, and the views no less stunning than they were then. I seem to also recall that I met up there with an old school friend whom I would shortly be linking up with again in Paris, but the tape does make no mention of this, so perhaps I am wrong. Come the following Saturday, I take a train to Basel. This is where I went to school. This is where I grew up. The first 21 years of my life. I spend 8 or 9 hours talking to Peggy, my best friend then, and my best friend. As then, when we meet, we find ourselves talking for hours. 8 or 9 is nothing unusual. If you pitch up at 6, have an apéro, have dinner, sit out on the balcony, keep on talking, before you know it, it's 3 in the morning. On Sunday, Peggy, my mum, and I go to see an exhibition. I don't tell the tape which one, and I can't remember. And then my brother comes round with his 2 sons, one of whom is my godson. There's a photograph of this occasion, which takes place in my parents' garden, with me sitting between the 2 boys, looking at a picture book, maybe reading them a story. My mother, a little while later, sent me this picture in a card with the quote in German. Es ist ein ungeheures Glück, wenn man fähig ist, sich freuen zu können. German websites attribute this to George Bernard Shaw. I try to find the English original, and so far I fail. It's a tremendous fortune to be able to find joy in things, is more or less how I would translate it back, but it still sounds more clunky than it should, if it's Shaw. Maybe it's been misattributed. That's possible. Many things are. Then we went to see Ayn Rand at the cinema. I don't remember anything about this, the film, or who is we in this instance, but my 24-year-old self puts on record that it was like no time had passed at all. Maybe because hardly any time had passed. A mere 3 years. Tuesday, I spent in Zurich, meeting, luckily, Benjamin for the first time in absolutely years, and also Beatrice. Benjamin, Beatrice. These 2 people. They are lodged in my mind, in my soul. Benjamin more than Beatrice, and in a much different way, but both register, both matter, both shaped who I was, and therefore who I am. The meeting with Benjamin I remember clearly. He was his usual laconic self. He was the boy I was most in love with for a very long time. We were in no relationship. He was never, as far as I know, he has never, as far as I know, reciprocated my feelings. He was not even there. He was just the boy I most loved. By this time, he would be about 22, and he had either just been released or was in day release from prison. He'd been sentenced to prison for no crime. He was a conscientious objector and had refused military service, which in Switzerland at the time carried a prison term and a criminal record. He was unfazed by his time in prison. He took this as he seemed to take everything in his stride. Granted, the way he talked about it, it also sounded like prison for conscientious objectors in Switzerland was by now a gentle affair. He was beautiful, as I had always seen him, and unruffled, unexcitable, but good-humoured. I'd carried him around in my heart for the entire duration I'd been living in London, and had continued to do so for many years after. It was only really when, on a Sunday afternoon, he phoned me out of the blue to tell me he'd received a letter I had sent him many months earlier, care of his mother, and we talked for maybe 5 hours or so on the phone, both getting increasingly woozy on our respective drinks. But I was able to put that love where it belonged, in the past, in my youth, in a time before even union here now in Zurich. I have memories of sitting at my parents' home next to each other on the sofa all night long, talking, drinking coffee, almost getting high on it, so much of it we drank. Of us walking in the fields near parents' home on Lake Zurich on a wintry afternoon. Of us first meeting at a school fete. I have everything with me still, as if it were yesterday. But only since maybe 10 years ago, slightly less, am I able to think of it really as yesterday. I believe I once kissed him, I'm not even sure. I'm sure that I always wanted to. Always. How deeply that boy had seeped into the folds of my brain. How strongly he clasped my heart. How warmly, how tenderly I longed for him. For how long? I still have his letters, of course. I no longer have this desire. I'm glad it has gone. I was able to bid it farewell. Not the memory, though. Not the fondness. I am over him now, but I cannot, and nor do I need to, get over how much I loved him. Beatrice, I also remember, also fondly, but not on that day. I certainly kissed her, and she was, I'm quite certain, keener on me than I was on her, but I liked her, and for a short while it was as if we were together. How strange to think of it now. But that alone, having been the girl with whom I was once almost together, secures her a place in myself. She too is part of me, was then, is now. Wednesday, a lunch with a friend. In all I recount on the tape, I had the chance to see lots of people, also my grandfather. I was very worried about my grandfather. He looked very ill and weak. He was very nice, but I have an impression that any time we meet might be the last time. And so, I believe, it proved on this occasion. That's it for today. Of course, I'm continuing this, as you may know, on a twice-weekly basis, Mondays and Wednesdays. So there will be another instalment soon from the tape. And until then, take very good care, love and love, and see you very soon. Bye-bye.